Good afternoon. I pray that your Wednesday you found spaces and places of joy, of happiness, of peace. Maybe you had an opportunity to express your creative side. Maybe you made a new recipe that you put some things together you'd never done before. Or maybe you painted a picture or wrote a poem or wrote some more in that great novel that you're working on, or maybe you danced, did a little improv. Whatever it is, maybe you picked up that instrument you haven't played in a long time. Well, maybe you found a new way to use your eye makeup. Whatever it is that shows off your creativity, I hope that you had an opportunity to do that yesterday. And if you didn't, that maybe today you can think about, how do I access my creative side? The side that makes me smile, the side that gives me purpose, the side that allows me to operate from a place of freedom. We are continuing our conversation about toxic relationships, and we're now talking about, and I have on my glasses, some signs that you might be able to work out your relationship if it is in fact toxic. Yesterday we talked about and emphasized that the underlying principle is both persons must be willing to work it out. Both persons, must want to work it out. Now I'm going to pause there for a minute because I'm not a couples counselor necessarily, but when I have done a bit of couples work, I have had instances where only one part of the couple would actually show up initially. And one could say, well, can you actually do couples work with just one person? Well, in some instances you can, because kind of like what I've been doing with you all, if I can get one person to begin to look at and determine what are the fallacies and roadblocks in the relationship from their perspective, and to come to a place where they're beginning to make some decisions which are much more self-affirming, which are much more focused on self-care, much more focused on setting boundaries. My experience has been eventually that partner, that other person, begins to look around and say, something's different. We're not having the same dynamic. When I push his or her button, they're not responding the same way. And then lo and behold, at the next visit or next visit in the future, that other person shows up with the partner. And then we can begin this level of work. And so in order, again, for if you have a toxic relationship, the base bottom line is both parties must be willing to work on it. And again, sometimes, and this is real stuff, you all, sometimes you may find yourself in a relationship, and this has more to do with intimate relationships, but it could be for work or church or whatever, that you're not sure if you want to stay or if you want to go. You're not sure if you want to put forth the effort, and that's what you've come to talk about. But I say that that's a good thing, because even not being sure, it leaves a space to move in either direction. What does not work is when one party wants growth and wants this thing to work, and the other one is not willing to even consider it or think about the challenges in the relationship. They just want to continue doing what's been done and to continue to stay in the pathology. So that's a long buildup to our next sign that this relationship could be helped. Yesterday we talked about willingness to invest the time, willing to invest the energy, willing to invest emotionally showing up in the relationship. We have not talked about solving the problems, but at least being willing to invest the time to explore, to look at, to consider where we are and where do we want to go. The next thing we're going to talk about today is acceptance of responsibility. And that's a difficult one. I think I'll keep my glasses on and just read a little bit. Recognizing the past behaviors that have harmed the relationship is vital on both ends. Recognizing the past relationships that have harmed the relationship is vital on both ends. It reflects an interest in self-awareness and self-responsibility. And so again, we're right back to both parties have to be willing to show up, willing to invest their time, but also being willing to take responsibility for their part. And I know a lot of times when we find ourselves in relationships that are not necessarily healthy, we can talk for days on end, for hours on end, about what the other person is doing wrong and how the other person is annoying and all of the traits and behaviors that the other person is doing to you. And all those things may be true. There are some very toxic people out there, and sometimes when we have not been healed as much as we need to be healed, we attract. And let me say that again, when we have not done our own work and have not healed to the place we need to be, we attract fellow toxic people. We attract fellow hurt people. We attract fellow damaged people. We attract narcissistic people who prey on those who are unhealed, to prey on those who are still in a place of hurt and pain. And so it's important for us to take responsibility for our piece of it. And you may say, I have been loving, I have been kind, I have done everything I could possibly do, and this joker is still cutting up. This joker is still making my life horrible. This joker is still disrespecting me. This joker is still just the worst. How do I take responsibility for that? Well, this is going to seem a little bit harsh, and it may not sound as comforting as you may have come to expect from me, but taking responsibility may come in simply saying, and I have accepted it. Taking responsibility may simply owning the fact that you also have a choice. And up to this point, you have made a choice to tolerate those behaviors that have not served you well. Taking responsibility is saying, okay, so my partner, when I talk with them, they tend to snap at me. Well, maybe taking your own accountability, your own responsibility, maybe looking at, well, how are you addressing them in the first place? You know, are you coming from a place of distrust? Are you coming from a place of accusation? Are all of your communications with this person only from a place of conflict? Do you all ever have spaces where you can talk to each other when there's nothing going wrong? When you can just have fun together? Or is the only time you want to interact with this person in your life is when something is going wrong, to get them told? And if there's nothing going on, you just completely ignore them. There's lots of examples we could give, but the bottom line is acceptance of responsibility is a big deal because it causes us or requires us to do a self-assessment. And for some people, truth be told, we may not have what they call enough ego strength to do a full self-acceptance, a full acceptance of responsibility at this given point in time. For some, our egos may be so fragile that we actually are living in a world of taking responsibility, taking too much responsibility. And so again, I want to remind you, this is about balance. Everything in a relationship is not your fault, but everything in a relationship is not the other person's fault either. You both are contributing to what is now proven to be a toxic relationship, and it's important that each person does a self-evaluation and takes responsibility for their part, okay? Taking responsibility for their part does not mean that you say, well, it's all me, you know, because there's two of you involved in it. You know, taking responsibility for yourself means to be honest with yourself, to begin to look at your own edges, to begin to look at what's being triggered in you when you're interacting with this person, what's coming up for you. Maybe what does this person represent? Maybe they're not the source of your pain at all, but you're with them because they help you to stay in that familiar place of pain. I'm going to say that again. Maybe you stay with them because they help you to stay in that familiar place of pain. And you may say, well, I don't like pain. None of us do. But we tend to get comfortable with what's familiar. And maybe that's the place where we need to take responsibility for. I hate the chaos. I hate the toxicity, but I've gotten used to it. And I've gotten used to it to such a level that I can't even imagine what life would be like if it wasn't there, if there wasn't some chaos going on in my life. And trust me, I have had many clients and interacted with many people who, when things begin to calm down, when there is no chaos going on, they're like, what's wrong? I don't know what to do with this sense of calm. I don't know what to do if I wasn't complaining. I don't know what to do if there was not drama, constant drama in my life. But trust me, beloved, a place of peace, a place of joy can be one of the best feelings in the world. But it won't feel good until you get used to it. If you're used to chaos, then that's what you're going to try to go back to. And maybe a starting place is just accepting, I have gotten very comfortable in my dis-ease. I have gotten very comfortable in this pit of pain. And, I have allowed my fear of what I could be blessed with. I have allowed my fear of what peace could possibly look like to prevent me from living my best life, prevent me from practicing self-care. That's preventing me from viewing myself from a place of worthiness and not worthlessness. And so today's message is a little bit hard, but it's important if you want to possibly heal, bring some restoration to your toxic relationships, no matter who it's with. Again, your children, church members, temple members, sorors, frats, co-workers, intimate relationships, parents. If you want to do that, both parties must be willing and invested in healing. And both parties also must be willing to invest the time to healing, but also must be willing to individually take and accept responsibility for their part. And very quickly, so who gets to tell you what your part is? Well, I think it's a either or kind of situation. You do your own evaluation. Your partner or whoever the other person is does their evaluation of the relationship. And then you all talk about it. And there may be places where you agree, and there may be places where you disagree. That's okay, because the real healing comes from being able to talk about it, being able to listen with open ears and not with, but just being able to listen. And that's a great exercise. Sit down with the person you're having this toxic relationship and pledge to invest the time to listen to each other without qualifiers, without explanations, but to listen from the position of truly hearing what the other person has to say and the other person being willing to do the same. This cannot be a one-sided, let's beat up on one person, but both of you have to be willing to listen to each other and hear where the other one is coming from. And then you all can have further conversations about what will that be like for our relationship. Talk with you later. I think my time is about running out. Love you all. I invite you to think about this on purpose and with intention. Love you all. Remember, the goal is for balance. The goal is for healing and restoration. Love you. Bye-bye.